And joining us now, the new men's head basketball coach at Southern Miss, Donnie Tyndall. Donnie, good to have you with us today. Welcome to the league, my friend.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And that's the good news, is that you're in Hattiesburg. The bad news is there's not a whole lot of players returning. You may be the youngest team in the league as far as experience.
Well, you're exactly right. You know, we only returned 4 players from last year's team. They had a great year a year ago, 25 wins, but we don't return a whole lot from that roster. So it's been a little bit of a task. Certainly the returning guys getting used to me getting comfortable with them, but meshing these new guys in as well.
You know, a lot of coaches talk about having a transition year. You know, in other words, you've got to change the style. You've got to learn who they are, what they're likes, how far you can coach them. Can you coach them hard? This transition year, has it gone well for you so far in as far as the learning process?
Well, it has. You know, I think the biggest thing, I like to use this term, at Morehead State, we always hoped year to year there was some residue left off from the previous year in regard to winning. And I think anytime you have a team that won 25 games, went to the NCAA tournament, even though there's only 4 returning players, you would hope there's some residue of winning left behind. And I think that's the case. The 4 returning guys have all bought in. They're used to working hard. They've continued to work hard for me. And then our new guys that we've brought in have had an opportunity to watch these experienced guys that played in the NCAA tournament a year ago, and kind of say, okay, this is how it's done, and they've been receptive thus far.
Are the guys that are returning, have they taken that leadership role? Because, as you mentioned, great season last year, the bar is now high, and you need those players to kind of push the younger players. Are they taking on that role?
They have. You know, in particular, Jonathan Mills and Neil Watson, Richard McGill, who's a senior on our team, have all embraced that leadership role. Dwayne Davis was a young man that sat out last year but is a senior in our program. Those are our quad captains. We've got 4 captains this year, and all those guys have done a nice job. You know, they've been on time, they've been responsible, they hold their teammates accountable when things aren't going well. And in particular, I need Neil Watson to be a little more vocal because, as your point guard, he's kind of the coach on the floor. He leads by example, but I need him to even step up a little more from a verbal standpoint.
You know, talking with Neil last year, he was a very quiet young man, it seemed like. And, you know, does he have that in him where he can do that?
I think so. You know, last year he stepped into a team as a newcomer that was kind of senior dominated. You know, they had 3 or 4 seniors that played a lot. Lachey Page was a junior who transferred to South Carolina, but he was a guy that kind of accepted his role and maybe was reluctant at times to be real outgoing or talkative. But this year it's a team where they need him to talk. They need him to communicate and verbalize what needs to be done. And I think he'll do that. He's done a nice job of that this fall, and he needs to continue to grow in that area.
Obviously, style is so important, the style of basketball you play. When you look at what you have done in the past, you play kind of the Kansas high-low. Do the players adapt to that quickly, or is it going to take some time for the learning process?
No, I think offensively, you know, Coach Eustace and his staff ran some high-low motion, and so from that standpoint, the returning guys are used to that or familiar with that. But defensively will be the biggest adjustment. We're going to press on made baskets and dead balls. It's going to be falling back to a matchup zone, but the zone isn't what you would, you know, a typical zone. It's going to be a zone that we're very aggressive. We're going to trap certain parts of the floor. When the ball goes to certain areas on the floor, we'll be in our man-to-man defense, and so it's an aggressive, high-energy defense. So I think that'll be the biggest difference for the returning guys or players is on the defensive end.
Obviously, you have your style and the system you want to play, but when you see the players that you have, do you sometimes have to tweak that style in what you have normally done in the past?
Well, I agree that, yes, at times you do, but with only 4 guys, there's not a whole lot of changing that needs to be done. This year, the guys we signed in the spring, although it was late, we feel like fit our style of play, our system pretty well. And the 4 guys that returning make it 5, including Dwayne Davis, who redshirted, are the type of guys I would have signed. They're athletic, they're hard-playing guys. They're quick, which is conducive to our style of play.
Now you return 37%, only 37% of the offense in rebounding. Who's going to have to be the scorer this year, the guy that you know you've got to get the points or we're going to struggle offensively?
Well, I think we'll have different guys step up offensively every night. You certainly plan on a guy like Neil Watson to score some balls for you and be a double-figure scorer. The guy I really think can shock a lot of people, and I know he had a nice year last year, is Jonathan Mills. He's got his body right. He came when we got the job. He weighed 248. We've got him down to 235. His body fat percentage is down. He looks like $1 million, and he's worked really hard. And I think with his athleticism improved and his skill level over the course of the summer improving, I think he's not going to be the most talented big in our league. He's not going to be the biggest post player in our league, but I think he can be one of the most efficient post players in our league.
One final question. Obviously, Conference USA, and we've been talking with other coaches about it, Josh Pashner in Memphis, very underrated conference in basketball. I don't think a lot of America understands how difficult this basketball is. Now that you're in Conference USA and you look at the Memphises of the world and the other teams, this is a pretty good basketball conference, and it's something that I don't think a lot of people realize.
Well, I agree, and I think, you know, what we did in the OVC for the past 4 years, us at Moorhead won 2 NCAA tournament games, and Murray won 2, and you established your identity as being a great mid-major league by winning an NCAA tournament. That hasn't really happened in Conference USA the last few years, so maybe people don't understand just how good this conference is. But there's some great coaches, first and foremost, top to bottom, great coaches in this league. NBA talent across the board. You know, there's probably going to be 6, 8, maybe 10 guys over the next 4 years that'll be NBA players on current rosters right now. And again, I think from top to bottom, you got to start with Memphis being a top 15 type team, and then the rest of the league is pretty balanced and probably up for grabs 2 through 12. So it's a good league. I'm looking forward to it and glad to be part of it.
One final question, fill in the blank. Our team has to do blank, don't say wins, to be successful. Our team has to do what? Is there one specific thing?
Rebound the basketball. You know, I was very fortunate at Moorhead State to have the best rebounder in college basketball history in Kenneth Fareed. We don't have that luxury, obviously, here at Southern Miss. We're going to be an undersized group as it is, so our guards are going to have to do a great job of what we call rebounding down. But as a team collectively, we're going to have to rebound the basketball to give ourselves a chance.
Donnie, good to see you, my friend. Best of luck this year.